The sun scorched the asphalt at Circuit de Catalunya, casting long, wavy shadows across the pit lane. Engines howled like beasts in heat behind garage doors, their screams bouncing off metal walls while team radios crackled with commands. It was qualifying day at MotoGP, fast, frantic, and unforgiving. No one had time for anything that didn't involve speed. So when a man wandered into the paddock wearing a worn leather jacket, jeans faded at the knees, and boots that had more dust than polish, most didn't notice him, and those who did, they dismissed him. He didn't have a badge. He didn't speak. He just stood beside the Redline prototype, the most anticipated machine on the track, as if he belonged there, not gawking, not taking selfies like a fan who had wandered too far. Just standing, arms relaxed, head tilted ever so slightly, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. To some, he looked like a drifter. To others, maybe an over-enthusiastic janitor. But there was something about his posture, still, centered, composed, that was out of place in a space built for noise and ego. From across garage number 27, a voice broke through the mechanical buzz. Sharp, young, loud. "Hey," it called. "Who let the pit ghost in?" Laughter followed. Uneasy, performative. The man didn't respond. His fingers rested lightly on the strap of the canvas backpack slung over his shoulder. His helmet, matte black, scuffed at the edges, dangled from one hand. He moved closer to the bike, not touching it, just observing. His gaze traced the rear swing arm, then the exhaust curve, the weld lines. Not like someone curious, but like someone remembering. As if every angle, every rivet, had once lived beneath his hands. And yet no one knew his name. Not yet. A crew member from Redline shifted on his feet. He knew who the man was, or at least suspected. But when the young rider, Tyler Reeves, swaggered toward them with a smirk on his face and cameras in his orbit, the crewman said nothing. Keanu had already raised a quiet hand, not to wave, but to silence. This wasn't a moment for spectacle. It was a test, and no one in that garage knew they were about to fail it spectacularly. Tyler Reeves had swagger the way some people had a limp, unavoidable and loud. The 22-year-old rookie sensation strutted across the pit like he owned every square inch of it. His race suit clung to his frame like it had been stitched on moments ago. His team logo, Redline Racing, flashed across his chest, the ink still fresh from the press. Cameras followed him, he made sure of it. And that's when he saw the man. Still there, still quiet, still next to his bike. Tyler stopped short, lips parting into a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "You lost, old man," he called out, walking straight toward Keanu. "This isn't the fan zone. That's 2 rows back, right past the food trucks." Some chuckled. Others didn't. A few of the Redline tech crew suddenly found their clipboards very interesting. Keanu said nothing. He simply turned slightly to look at Tyler, eyes unreadable behind his dark glasses. Calm, completely unbothered. The kind of quiet that's more unsettling than any insult. Tyler didn't like it. "I'm serious, dude," he pushed on. "You got credentials to be in here, or are you someone's dad come to pick him up?" The silence thickened. Keanu turned back toward the bike, angling his body just enough to get a better view of the front forks. He wasn't close enough to touch, but close enough to make Tyler feel threatened in the only way that mattered here. Presence. "Hey!" Tyler barked, spinning toward one of his crew. "Who the hell is this guy?" The crewman opened his mouth to answer, then hesitated, glancing at Keanu, who gave a small, subtle shake of his head, a wordless command. "Let it go." And the crewman did. He nodded, lips pressed thin. Tyler rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on," he laughed bitterly. "You people are unbelievable. Next thing you know, he'll be asking for a ride." Then, in a moment meant for attention, not reason, Tyler bent down, grabbed a nearby paper towel, and flicked it toward Keanu's boots. "Here," he said mockingly. "Might as well clean the floor while you're at it, buddy." He landed with a faint whisper, but the sound it made in the room was deafening. Keanu looked at the towel for a beat. Then, slowly, he bent down, picked it up with the same care someone might fold a flag, and walked it over to the trash bin. No reaction, no bite. Just grace. The garage didn't breathe. It didn't blink. And Tyler? For the first time all morning, his grin faltered just a little, because something in that gesture, so small, so quiet, didn't feel like surrender. It felt like power, and nobody knew how to handle that. Tyler Reeves had never met a moment he didn't want to broadcast. He paced a few steps away from the red line prototype, still riding the high of the towel toss, still convinced he'd just pulled off another viral bit. The garage hadn't erupted in laughter the way he hoped, but Tyler wasn't worried. He had an audience, and audiences, they could be made. He pulled out his phone, flipped the camera to selfie mode, and tapped the Go Live button with the flair of a showman stepping on stage. "All right, people," he beamed to the lens, voice slick with confidence. "It's your boy Ty Reeves, coming at you live from the pit here in Barcelona." Behind him, the red line prototype glistened under the harsh lighting, matte black with red accents, its body curved like a weapon drawn in silence. But Tyler wasn't showing off the bike. He was aiming for the man. "Now listen," he continued, turning the camera slightly. "I gotta show y'all something crazy. This guy," he zoomed in on Keanu, still seated quietly on a storage crate at the far end of the garage, "has been hovering around our pit all morning. No badge, no crew gear, not even a lanyard. Just chillin' next to a 7-figure machine like he built it himself." Tyler laughed, a high, performative chuckle. "I swear, y'all, this dude has said 0 words, not one. Just stands there like he's meditating on tire pressure or something." In the background, one of the younger techs flinched. The camera kept rolling. Comments poured in. "Who is that guy? Bro's lost. Is that Keanu Reeves? Nah, can't be. Looks like someone's dad wandered into the wrong Netflix set." Tyler spun back toward the camera, loving the energy. "Someone tell this man MotoGP is not an open museum," he said, his grin widening. "Next thing you know, he'll be asking for a latte and trying on my gloves." From across the garage, Keanu didn't flinch, didn't even acknowledge the phone pointed directly at him. And that made Tyler push harder. He walked toward Keanu with the camera still rolling. "Excuse me, sir," he said in a mockingly polite voice. "Do you have any credentials to be this close to the bike? Or are you just really good at standing still?" Still no response, but Keanu's fingers tapped twice on his knee, subtle, rhythmic, controlled, almost like he was listening to something Tyler couldn't hear. And that made the silence feel heavier. Tyler faltered for half a second. Then he turned the camera back to his own face. "Yo, this is wild. I mean, the confidence. This guy must think he's royalty or something. I might ask him to autograph a banana. If he can speak." Somewhere behind them, a mechanic's tablet beeped, but no one moved. No one stopped him. No one intervened. Because while Tyler was still performing, still chasing another clip for the highlight reel, the rest of the room was shifting, imperceptibly, toward something deeper, something that couldn't be posted, filtered, or monetized. Respect, and none of it was aimed at Tyler. Keanu finally rose to his feet. He didn't speak, he didn't meet the camera, he didn't play the game. Instead, he walked slow and steady toward the back of the garage and disappeared through a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Tyler turned to his audience, laughing. "There he goes, probably off to grab some free espresso." He ended the stream with a wink. He didn't realize, what he couldn't possibly understand in that moment, was that he had just live-streamed himself mocking a man whose name was etched into the very machine he'd be racing tomorrow. And the internet? It doesn't forget. Garage 27 pulsed with a strange electricity, not the kind that came from power tools or battery packs, something subtler, unease maybe, a shift, like the air just before a thunderstorm, thick with tension that hadn't found its lightning yet. Tyler Reeves strutted in, helmet in one hand, swagger dialed up to 11. His phone buzzed with likes and comments from the live stream earlier. He didn't check it, but he could feel the momentum building. All eyes on him, as it should be. Then he stopped cold. There, at the center of the garage, straddling the red line prototype like it was his own, was the same man from earlier. Keanu Reeves, not standing beside the bike now. On it, feet planted on the paddock floor, gloved hands lightly resting on the bars, back arched just enough to align with the machine's core. He didn't start the engine, didn't move the throttle. He just leaned in, body low, like a whisper passing between man and machine. Tyler blinked. Once. Twice. Then his face twisted. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Everyone in the garage froze. The mechanic closest to the diagnostic screen dropped his stylus. Another choked on the sip of water he'd just taken. No one moved. No one dared. Keanu didn't react. His gaze remained fixed on the horizon. Or something beyond it. A writer, not writing, but becoming. Tyler stormed forward. "Hey, I said get off my bike." Still, no response. Just the quiet of someone so entirely sure of where they belong that permission becomes irrelevant. Tyler looked around, exasperated. "Are you guys seriously letting this happen? He could mess up the calibration. That seat's custom fit for me." That's when Kalen, the lead engineer, stepped in. He moved faster than expected for a man with graying temples and grease-stained knuckles. He slipped between Tyler and Keanu like a mechanic breaking up a fight between machines. "Ty," Kalen said low and firm. "Let it go." Tyler blinked. "What?" "Let him finish." "Finish what?" Tyler barked. "A cosplay session?" Keanu finally moved. Slowly, purposefully, he swung his leg over the bike and stepped down. The movement was smooth, practiced, a man who understood the weight of machines and moments. He adjusted the sleeve of his jacket, then looked directly at Kalen. His voice, when it came, was low and even. Measured. Steering head feels tight at mid-lean. Double-check preload when you reset rider settings. Kalen nodded like he'd just been handed scripture. Tyler's jaw dropped. "Wait, what? He's giving tech notes now?" Keanu didn't answer. Didn't even look at him. He walked over to the work table where his canvas backpack sat, picked it up and slung it over one shoulder. Then he reached for his helmet. He paused, not turning, not needing to, and said just loud enough for Tyler to hear, "You should spend less time talking to cameras and more time learning how your machine speaks." Then he walked out, boots heavy on concrete. No dramatic flair, no final glare. Just absence and the weight it left behind. Tyler turned in a slow circle. "Can someone please tell me what the hell is going on?" No one answered. The tension had shifted again. Not awkwardness now, reverence, the kind that follows truth spoken in a language only a few understand. Kalen looked at the bike, then at Tyler. "Get ready," he said quietly. "You're up in 30. Tyler didn't move, didn't speak, because something inside him, something loud and self-assured, had gone quiet. Just for a second. And in that stillness, he began to feel it. The unmistakable sensation of being put in your place by someone who didn't need to raise their voice to do it. The press hall was humming, not with excitement exactly, but with something just as restless. Anticipation. Rows of chairs filled with sponsors, reporters, engineers, and MotoGP executives fidgeting under the glare of a massive LED screen. It loomed above the stage like a commandment, bold white letters stretching across its width. Revealing the future. Redline XR. Tyler Reeves sat front row, sunglasses on, leg bouncing, jaw tight. He wasn't listening to the buzz around him. His mind was still stuck in the garage, in the silence that had followed that stranger's exit. And worse, in the look on Callan's face. The kind of look that said, "You don't get it yet, but you will." Tyler's phone buzzed in his pocket. Messages, notifications. The aftermath of the live stream. He ignored them, for now. On stage, a suited executive from Redline stepped up to the podium, smile gleaming under the lights. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began smoothly, "what you're about to witness is the culmination of 2 years of experimentation, sleepless nights, and a bold partnership between Redline Racing and one of the most visionary boutique motorcycle builders in the world." There was polite applause. Tyler didn't clap. He'd heard all this in briefings. "And now," the executive continued, "we are honored to officially present the Redline X-Arch prototype, developed in collaboration with Arch Motorcycles, co-founded by Gard Hollinger, and our special guest today, Mr. Keanu Reeves." Tyler's head snapped up. Gasps stirred the crowd. Phones flew into the air. Camera shutters clicked like hail on a windshield. "Keanu Reeves? That Keanu Reeves?" Endetsu. He appeared. Stepping out from behind the velvet curtain, Keanu walked onto the stage without an entourage, without fanfare. No helmet, no sunglasses, just that same worn leather jacket, hair pulled back, posture straight. There was something ancient and settled about the way he moved, like a man who didn't need to take the room because the room already belonged to him. The clapping swelled. Tyler sat frozen. The man he'd mocked, live-streamed, humiliated. The one he'd accused of loitering like a stray dog in the paddock was now stepping behind a podium, introduced as the co-creator of the very machine Tyler had sworn was his. Keanu spoke, his voice calm and grounded. "I'm honored to be part of this project," he said. "Arch has always been about more than just speed. It's about connection, about building something that doesn't just go fast but means something. This bike isn't just numbers and torque. It's a dialogue between man and machine. It listens, and if you listen back, it'll take you places you didn't know you could reach." His gaze scanned the audience, just once. Then it stopped. And him, Tyler. It wasn't a glare. Not smug, not angry. Just aware. A glance that said, "I remember everything," without needing to say a word. Tyler's throat tightened. The sunglasses he wore now felt ridiculous, like a cheap disguise hiding nothing. His fingers dug into his kneecap as applause rolled over him, distant and unearned. He could hear the replay of his own voice from earlier that day. "Do you have credentials, sir? Janitor crew? Maybe sign a banana?" He wanted to disappear into the fabric of the chair. No one else in the audience knew. Not yet. But Keanu did. And so did Tyler. When Keanu stepped away from the mic, a few people from the media reached out, asking for statements. He offered only polite smiles. A nod here. A soft "thank you" there. But as he passed by the Redline delegation, the very table where Tyler sat, the room seemed to exhale. And Keanu stopped. Just briefly, just beside him. The air went still. Tyler didn't dare look up, but he felt it, that presence, that quiet gravity that didn't push or pull, it simply was. Then Keanu looked at him, not to humiliate, not to scold, but to leave something behind, something unspoken, heavier than shame. And Tyler knew in that moment, not even his best finish could wash the stain from what had already gone live. Because silence, in Keanu's hands, was never empty. It was deliberate. It was truth. And it was enough to make even a room full of flashing cameras and roaring reputations feel like noise in comparison. As Keanu walked away, the press parted like water. He didn't need security. He didn't need applause. He had respect. The kind that can't be bought, borrowed, or edited. Tyler sat there, frozen, surrounded by people who didn't yet realize what had happened, but soon would. Because somewhere online, a video was already spreading. A young rookie mocking a man in silence. And that man stepping onto a stage minutes later and silencing the world. The applause had faded, but its echo lingered like smoke after a fire. People were still talking, still buzzing, but it wasn't about the bike anymore. It was about the man. the one they thought they knew from movie screens, but now realized had quietly stepped into their world not as a celebrity, but as a builder, a thinker, and, perhaps most humbling, as someone who had let the machine speak for itself. Tyler Reeves couldn't move. He sat in the front row of the press hall, arms folded tight across his chest, sunglasses still on even though the overhead lights had dimmed. His heart thudded with a beat that didn't match the rhythm of the post-event playlist piping softly through the speakers. Around him, conversations hummed, engineers chatting with execs, journalists typing headlines, sponsors exchanging handshakes. But Tyler heard none of it. All he could hear was that single moment, Keanu's eyes locking onto his for a brief second, not with hostility, not even with disappointment, but with something far worse. Recognition. He knew. Tyler had mocked that man, laughed at him, broadcasted his arrogance to thousands of followers, and now the truth was out there, not just on the stage, but on the screens. He slipped his phone out of his pocket, hand trembling slightly. The app was still open, the live stream, the comments. He hadn't looked since before the reveal. Now he wished he hadn't. Is that Keanu Reeves? Bro just clowned the guy who built his bike. You just ended your own career live. And this is why you shut up and listen. The clip had already been shared. Dozens of versions, different angles, some spliced with footage from the press conference, others edited with dramatic music, voiceovers, even memes. He watched himself on screen, grinning, mocking, arrogant. And then Keanu, calm, silent, towering not because of height or fame, but because of composure. You don't wait for a name to show respect, Keanu had said. You offer it by default. Tyler's stomach turned. A few people around him were whispering now, not loud, but just enough. Didn't he? Oh, wasn't that him on the stream? Yeah, I think that's the kid. The one who said, what was it? Something about janitors? Tyler clenched his jaw, shoved the phone back into his pocket, and stood abruptly. He muttered something about getting air, not that anyone asked. Outside, the Catalan sun had begun to set, casting long shadows across the paddock. The light was golden now, softened by the dust in the air and the exhaustion that always followed high-octane events. The hum of generators still thrummed in the distance. Crew members walked in clusters, heading toward evening debriefs or silent goodbyes. He walked alone, past the sponsor tents, past the scaffolding where banners flapped lazily in the breeze, past the garage bays, until he stopped. Garage 27, the place where it had all started that morning. The red line prototype still sat there, gleaming under the cold fluorescence. The team had mostly cleared out, except for one figure at the far end. Keanu. No cameras this time, no audience, just him and Kalen. The lead engineer crouched beside the fairing, wiping it down with a soft cloth like it was something sacred. You didn't have to say anything, Kalen was saying. Keanu gave a small smile. Sometimes a lesson sticks better when no one shouts it. Tyler froze at the edge of the garage. He could have turned around, could have walked away, but something held him there. A pull, guilt, maybe, or shame, or the stubborn ache of knowing you were wrong and not knowing how to fix it. Keanu looked up. He didn't flinch, didn't nod, just saw him. Tyler stepped forward, unsure what he was doing until he was doing it. I didn't know who you were, he said, voice barely more than a breath. Keanu didn't answer immediately. He stood, tall but not intimidating, patient but not soft. That's not the point, he said quietly. It never was. Tyler's throat tightened. I was just being stupid. Keanu tilted his head slightly. You were being loud. He let the words settle before continuing. There's a difference between being fast and being ready. Talent's a gift, respect is a choice. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was honest. I'm sorry, Tyler said. Keanu studied him for a moment, not looking for sincerity, but maybe for whether the apology had roots or was just another leaf blown in the wind. Then, finally, He gave a small nod. "You'll ride well tomorrow. I watched your testing. You've got something." Tyler blinked. "You watched me? I always watch what I helped build." And with that, Keanu turned, picked up his helmet and walked toward the back exit of the garage, the same way he had walked in that morning. Didn't bother. Unforgettable. Tyler didn't move for a long time, because in the quiet that followed, something had changed. Not just in the garage, but in him. Race day arrived with the kind of sun that turned metal into mirrors and sweat into salt. The sky over Circuit de Catalunya stretched cloudless and wide, as if the world itself had cleared the stage. Engines fired like war drums in the distance. Spectators flooded the stands, flags waving, chants rising, the smell of rubber and adrenaline thick in the air. Garage 27 was quiet. The usual chaos had been replaced with something more focused, more hushed. Even the banter between techs was subdued. No jokes, no yelling, just calm movement, like a team that had been reminded of something deeper than sponsorships or rankings. Tyler Reeves stood beside his bike, half zipped into his racing suit, helmet under his arm. His face was bare now, no glasses, no forced grin. His eyes were different. Not scared, not cocky, just aware. He hadn't posted a thing all morning. No hype video, no locker room selfie, not a single word. Because every word he'd said the day before had already been heard, louder than he ever intended. The viral clip had taken on a life of its own. A 42-second video where a young hotshot mocked an older man beside a MotoGP prototype, cut against the press conference, cut against silence. The internet had done what it does best: judged, clipped, reshared, and amplified. The rookie who mocked Keanu Reeves? When arrogance meets silence. You never know who built the machine you ride. And now the world was watching Tyler, not to cheer, but to see what he would do next. Kalen approached, clipboard in hand, voice low. "You good?" Tyler nodded once. "I'm not going to blow it." Kalen didn't smile, but there was something in his eyes that resembled respect, or the beginnings of it. They rolled the bike out. The pit crew moved in concert, placing the tire warmers, checking the telemetry, logging the final adjustments. Tyler mounted the prototype like a man stepping onto a stage he no longer controlled. And maybe that was the point. He didn't need to control it. He just needed to listen. The engines roared to life. One by one, the racers pulled onto the grid. Tyler was among them, focused, composed. The visor on his helmet dropped with a hiss. His name flashed on the leaderboard, his stats. But none of it mattered as much as the weight he now carried. Not of shame, but of responsibility. The lights dropped. The race began. He rode like fire through wire. Not reckless, not arrogant. Every turn was felt, not forced. Every shift was earned. And the prototype beneath him didn't fight, it responded, like a machine that had finally been heard. He didn't win. He placed fifth. But when he pulled into the pit lane after the checkered flag, the applause wasn't just for the podium. It was for the moment. It was the growth. For the silence that had been filled with something greater than noise. Later that afternoon, as the track cooled and fans filtered out, Tyler sat alone near the back of Garage 27, helmet on the bench beside him. The sun had begun to lower in the sky, casting long gold streaks across the concrete. He was still in his suit, sleeves tied around his waist, undershirt soaked in effort. The crew moved around him, packing up, winding cables, lowering monitors. But no one disturbed him. Then, from the far side of the garage, a quiet stir. Keanu. Same jacket. Same calm, same silence that made noise feel like a cheap distraction. He walked in without fanfare, nodded once to Kalen, then approached Tyler. They stood face to face, just the two of them, in the dimming light. Keanu glanced at the bike, then back at Tyler. "You listened," he said simply. Tyler nodded. "Tried to." Keanu stepped closer, resting one hand gently on the seat of the prototype. It responded. Tyler looked down, fingers flexing against the edge of the bench. It felt different today, like it was willing. Keanu gave a soft breath of a smile. That's the thing about machines. They always know when you're forcing it. Same goes for people. There was no lecture in his tone, no judgment, just presence. The kind that doesn't ask for attention, it earns it by never demanding it. Thank you, Tyler said quietly. Keanu looked at him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. Don't thank me, earn it. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. But before disappearing beyond the shadows of the garage, he paused and looked back over his shoulder. You've got speed, he said, but speed without soul is just noise. And then he was gone. Tyler sat still, not stunned, not broken, just awake. The day wasn't about victory anymore. It was about understanding, and for the first time in his young career, Tyler Reeves wasn't trying to outrun the world. He was finally catching up to it. Long after the crowds had gone, after the trophies were lifted and the last of the champagne had dried on the pavement, the paddock lay still. The sun had dipped below the horizon, bleeding its final colors into the sky, and the world around Circuit de Catalunya had fallen quiet in a way only racetracks know. The kind of silence that arrives not from emptiness, but from something being spent. Energy, ego, noise. Tyler Reeves remained. He sat alone on the pit wall, elbows on knees, eyes watching the now empty track stretch ahead like a question waiting to be answered. His gloves were off, his helmet tucked beside him. The cheers from earlier still echoed somewhere deep in the memory, but they no longer mattered. What stayed was the silence, and the lesson it carried. He replayed the race in his mind, not the speeds or the placements, but the feeling. The way the machine had met him halfway, the way it trusted him once he stopped treating it like a tool and started treating it like a partner. It had taken only one day to understand what Keanu had meant. One day to see what 100 interviews or highlight reels never taught. You can't hear a bike when you're too busy talking over it. That line hadn't just been about motorcycles. It had been about everything. He hadn't posted a thing since the live stream. The phone sat in his gear bag, untouched. For once, the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was healing. Necessary. From behind him, footsteps approached. Soft, deliberate. Tyler didn't turn. He didn't need to. Keanu sat down beside him on the pit wall, the sound of his leather jacket creasing quietly in the evening air. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. They sat that way for a while. Two men, one older, one younger, connected by something louder than applause and deeper than any podium finish, a shared reverence for what couldn't be measured. Not in lap times, not in followers, not in likes. Finally, Keanu spoke. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who made the engine roar. Tyler smiled faintly. I get that now. Keanu looked out at the track, at the curve disappearing into the dark. You'll ride again, win bigger things, make louder noise. He paused, then added, but don't forget the silence. That's where the real stuff lives. They stood. No handshake, no selfie, just a nod. A man who had once been ridiculed like he didn't belong, and the boy who'd learned just in time that respect isn't given with a title. It's earned in how you carry yourself when no one's looking. Keanu walked away once more, fading into the shadows of the garage like he had at the beginning. Unannounced, unbothered, but this time unforgettable for different reasons. And Tyler? He stayed on the pit wall a little longer, watching the dark, breathing in the silence, holding it. Like the most important part of the race had just begun.